all my life on an open page.
For me, the way that I run my show live is that I basically go in a linear fashion from one combination sound to another. And every combination is some kind of a layer or a split. It could be 5 sounds that are layered. Maybe I have a sound effect on the high key and another sound effect on the low key and French horns on certain keys in this octave and some strings here. So it can be very, very complicated. So my Kronos allows me to lay these things out. But in addition to that, I also use PDFs to read my scores. So I'm looking at an iPad that has my score. I'm looking at the Kronos that has all my different sounds. So I've learned a lot from performing that way, and it's been very, very functional. But in the real world, beyond this particular application, people are using all different kinds of hardware and software. And the reason that I have been a big supporter and advisor in Camelot is because I really believe that there needs to be a tool that makes it possible to use all the equipment and all the software that people have in a way that's not going to be overwhelming and confusing. So I know the path is leading towards that. Even for myself, using the Korg Kronos for my Dream Theater gig, I know in the bigger picture of things that it has to be possible to use technology to make live performance even that much more inclusive, because I like to use my iPad and I like to use my software as well. So I've been a little bit resistant because I feel like some of the existing tools to this point have been very complicated. But our goal with Camelot is to make it something that everybody can use and feel comfortable with and actually get the maximum out of the system. A good example is that instead of having the sheet music, like a PDF, be separate than your instrument where you're putting together your splits and layers, is in Camelot it's all one. So if you have a particular scene, or you can think of it as a patch, your patch can include the music to that particular part that you're playing. So as I would advance to the next part of the song, maybe the verse chorus, the music keeps changing as well. So it's not like there's multiple pedals for changing pages and changing your instrument. Everything becomes one. And the other thing is that there's been a lot of focus on making it really easy to use popular hardware as well. This has been a big deal. So like if you're using something like a Yamaha motif, what Camelot can do is it can very easily understand what the sounds are in that instrument. So you don't need to be an expert in the motif. You don't need to be an expert in the Kronos. Camelot will do that work for you and allow you to do your splits and layers using the one language that you learn to use that software and make it seamless. So you can use all your hardware and you don't have to worry so much. So I really believe in this path forward. And that's the reason that we're putting so much energy into it. For live performance, it creates a certain challenge for musicians. Not every musician likes to perform live. For me, I really like it. I like to be in the studio, but I like live as well. And one of the reasons that I really like it is because it's personal. It sounds like maybe spiritual, but it's a personal growth kind of a thing. For me to play all the stuff that I do with Dream Theater, or all the stuff that I do in a solo concert, takes a lot of focus, a lot of practice, but transferring what you know to the stage, especially if you're playing in front of many thousands of people, or if I'm playing in front of a few people, you still need to kind of be able to relax and be centered and be focused, and to be able to play maybe the very challenging technical thing that you could play at home, no problem. But on stage, somehow, for some people, maybe it's difficult. So there's a lesson there. One of the tips I could give to a young musician is that if you're at home and you're preparing for a live concert, think about being on the stage. How do you want to feel when you're on stage? Just don't, practice randomly, scales or whatever, without thinking about what's it really going to feel like if I'm playing. It's got to be a certain headspace, and that's what you want to practice. If you don't practice that, and you only practice the technique of your scale or whatever, chances are you'll get in front of all the people and it will fall apart because you don't know how you want to feel and you haven't memorized that particular frame of mind, which is so crucial. Preparation for live performance is such an important thing to understand. One of the interesting things for me and my group is that in Dream Theater we have 5 guys who all prepare in different ways, but all the different ways that we do are kind of valid. As an example, you have somebody like John Mayung, who is the biggest practicer of any of us on his bass, and he's always, all day long, basically moving his fingers and staying loose and calm. He's not practicing anything too technically difficult, but he's keeping himself loose and in the mode of the show, which is really, really important. So whether he's home, he's in his basement, he's just kind of keeping things flexible and loose, or he's behind the stage and getting ready to play and moving his fingers. That's another thing. Somebody like John Petrucci might just sit there and really practice with the metronome, and it really helps to focus, and starting off very slowly and moving faster very gradually over a certain amount of time. For myself, it's also important to practice with a metronome and for the focus, but it's really important to be loose and feel comfortable and warm. I find if I had the choice whether to spend an hour playing scales on a keyboard or to just be really, really warm and have my hands feel really good and I wouldn't touch the keyboard, it's probably better just to be warm and relaxed. So everybody's got their own way to do it, but the moral of the story is you have to be centered and focused and calm, and you have to practice that headspace and do whatever it takes, whether it's yoga or meditation, or just sitting quietly, or practicing with a metronome, or the Mayung technique, which is just kind of play your instrument freely and easily and just be comfortable. I met my Camelot team some years ago, I remember at one of the conventions, and I immediately knew, actually it was Simone Capitani who I met, and I knew that this was a really special guy, just by the, sometimes you just get a vibe from somebody. So we stayed in touch for a long time and found a lot of common ground with the way that we were thinking, and it was our kind of dream to work together, and we started to work together on different applications, and I'd have him work on the user experience and the user interface for things like HarmonyWiz, and to help with my various apps for Wisdom Music. And at some point on our journey, the idea of building this software called Camelot came up, and it's been a real journey. It's been something that's been very important to me because not only do I enjoy the guys that I work with on the team, but I also think that the software is really, really important. So there's a tremendous focus, and there's really a desire to make software that will fill in this void that exists right now in technology. Right now, there's people using Android stuff and Mac stuff and iOS and PCs, Windows, and it's really, really confusing to be a musician and to understand how it all gets integrated. So the idea behind Camelot was to make it totally possible to use all your various hardware and software, whether it's on something like iOS. Right now we're running GeoShred inside Camelot. So, doing all your splits and layers. If I had a Yamaha motif here, I could send messages to that, or a phantom. And it doesn't really, in Camelot, it really doesn't matter. If you're using hardware or software, we kind of view it all together. And the goal is to make it something that's friendly, that's easy, that you can understand. And that's a great goal, and it's really, really important. So I'm here to kind of help see that mission through and to make sure the team can kind of accomplish this vision, which is really important to the music space.